Hey, it's Rob, and welcome to Axel's Garage. Well, 3 days, my wife killed Barry White. Yep, that's right. She used it for 3 days, and Barry White won't start. So she said to me, I tried to start it, and it just clicked. Sounds like the battery's dead. She's pretty good at that kind of diagnosis, and she was right. The battery was dead. Not enough to turn the engine over. It would just click. The starter solenoid would just click. So she told me that the previous couple of starts seemed to be a little slow, a little lugging kind of slow. So I assumed that either we had a battery going bad or we had an alternator that wasn't properly charging the battery, one of the two. So because we have a fleet of vehicles to use, I just put the trickle charger on this one and let it charge up a day and a half or so. And I came back to the truck, opened the hood, trickle charger was showing status fully charged. Unplugged the trickle charger, went to start it, and click again. So I went to the battery and checked the battery voltage with a simple multimeter, and the battery voltage was like 10.8. So I said, how could that be? I just charged the battery. So I charged the battery again, checked the battery voltage. It was somewhere a little over 12 when it was done, and unplugged the battery charger again, went to start it, and click, immediately checked the battery, 10.8. So I have something going on here. It's either a pretty large parasitic draw that's pulling that battery down real quick, or a short in a component like a starter sometimes can short out internally and just suck your battery dry, or a shorted alternator as well. The problem is narrowing it down, and I don't want to disconnect the battery. I want to do as much troubleshooting I can without disconnecting the battery, because sometimes when you disconnect that battery, whatever component is causing the problem, if it's not completely roasted, that component, or it's an intermittent problem, sometimes it gets stuck on, and by disconnecting the battery you unstick it. So we don't want to unstick it until we have to unstick it. So let me chase it down. So I'll show you exactly what I've done so far, and it's a simple multimeter test to check for parasitic draw. Nothing fancy, a real quick and dirty test to check the circuits in your fuse panel to see if they're drawing current when they shouldn't be. So if you're watching this video, you know cars don't necessarily turn off when you turn them off, and you know that because you've been watching several parasitic draw videos. Seeing if my doors will even open. They did. Okay, so I do have enough battery juice. The trickle charger has been on it over 24 hours. I haven't checked it to see if it's fully charged yet. We'll see once I open the hood. But the first step is going to be unlocking the car and locking the car. And what I mean by that is we're going to need access here. So it's got to be door open because we need access here. There's fuses in here. There's fuses under the hood, so we need the hood to be opened. So I'm going to open the hood. On this vehicle, the hood doesn't have any kind of electronics attached to it. There's no electronics on the latch. There's no pin switches. There's no lights under the hood. There's no anything. The vehicle doesn't know when the hood's open. So we're good there. On the door, of course, we're going to have a door latch that's going to tell us that the door is open, and it's going to power the dome lights, and it could power other modules within the vehicle. This is a 2005, so we're right at that point where it might have some modules, it might not. These, generally speaking, don't. These GMT-800s don't have a ton of computer stuff going on when you shut it down. So what we're going to do is just take any kind of tool, and we are going to, let me zoom in on the latch there. We got the latch. We're going to come in and we're going to latch it. So now the door thinks it's closed. And the vehicle is going to think that the door is closed when the door is actually open. There are no pin switches in this door. Other makes, models, you know, might have some pin switches that you would have to clamp down so that the vehicle thinks the door is shut when the door is open. And now all I'm going to do is, and I'm just going to use my remote, I am going to lock it like I would normally lock it. Okay? Wow, that was a little weird even too. I hit it once and it almost felt like it wanted to, that it wanted to start. The battery is actually, I think, real low. No, that's locked, that door there. No, that's open. All right, so the doors aren't even locking well. That's how low the battery is. So we're gonna go under the hood now, and we're gonna check the status of that charger and see what it looks like. So my trickle charger, it's a 1.5 amp charger, is giving me a green light, which means that the battery is fully charged. It's still connected to the battery. Could I potentially have a bad battery? Yes. The battery could be bad. I'm thinking that it's not bad. It's dated 3 of 22. I probably bought it 4 or 5 of 22, which is not even a year yet, 9 months or so. So I'm thinking this battery is in fairly decent shape. All right, my charger is connected, so I should see decent battery voltage. All right, so putting it on DC volts, I'm going to come down and look at my voltage, and I'm 1225 with the battery charger connected. 1226 it just went up to. I'm going to disconnect one leg of the battery charger, and I'm going to go to my terminals, and I'm at 1173, 72, 70. It's just dropping. 69, 68, 67. You see how fast it's dropping. So I have a problem, and I need to figure out what the problem is. So what I'm going to do first is open up my underhood fuse block, and I don't care which fuses are which. What I care about is if any of these fuses are getting power through them. So what you're going to do with that is you're going to put your meter on a millivolt scale, and let me bring the camera in here. All right, so what you're going to do is with your meter on DC millivolts, you are going to touch the tops of your fuses going across the fuse, and you'll see you'll get a number will go up, and then it will go down to either 0.1 or 0. Most of them will zero out. Okay, you see how it's 0.1, and then it'll flood it to 0, and then we'll go to the next one. Boom, to 0. The next one to 0. The next one, and it goes down to 0. And you'll go through all those fuses, and they will tell you whether or not you have a draw. If you see voltage, millivoltage, going through, that's just my meter jumping around because I don't have anything connected. But if you see, say 3.5 millivolts going across a fuse, that means there's current flowing through that fuse. And what you would do then is go to a chart. Power Probe makes a chart that will convert the type of fuse and the millivolts that you see to an amp draw. And you could use Power Probe chart. I'll link it in the description below to tell you where your how much your draw is. Once you identify the fuse, now you know at least the circuit. I went through all the regular mini fuses, and these are the mini fuses. I went through all of them. I don't have a draw anywhere. This one I pulled out, not because I had a draw, but because this fuse controls my HVAC control. My HVAC control was going bonkers with the battery voltage problems that we were having. While I'm talking to you, let me put my battery charger back on so I can at least stay with a fully charged battery for testing purposes once I move along. So I pulled this out because my HVAC was acting strange, and I wanted to see if it was acting strange because of low battery voltage or it was having a problem, and it appears that this has nothing to do with the low battery voltage situation. The only fuses that I haven't checked are these big ones here, because you have to pop the covers off of them, and I haven't done that yet. So I got these big fuses up here, the maxi fuses I think they're called, and I have 4, and 5, so I got 9 of them. And then the relays all feel cool to the touch. If you had a thermal camera, you can bring your thermal camera in, you can look at your fuses. You might see a hot spot in a relay that's being stuck open or commanded on for some reason. You could see a hot spot in your alternator and your starter components like that, and that's a good indicator of your draw as well. So I need a little pick to pick off the windows of these fuses, to check these fuses. I also have some fuses on the inside to check as well. So these vehicles have a fuse panel in here as well, and a little harder to get at, but once you can figure out a way to get at them, okay, well, I just went to go pull my remote start module, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I went to pull my remote start module out of the way, and one of the wire connectors actually pulled out of it completely. And, or is this one not used? No, that's a 4-pin, and that's a 3-pin. Oh, never mind. This one's not used. Okay. I thought it pulled out completely. That one is not used. Oh, this is the other one that's used on this side. Okay. So there was one that's used and one that's not used. All right, let me get all my stuff out of the way here. And now I can activate. Now, being that we talked about the remote start module that's down here, you got to be careful with aftermarket components. I like to add things to a vehicle, but a lot of times it's aftermarket components that make you have some kind of massive voltage draw or battery issues. So I am on the first fuse and I'm down to 0. All right, I'm going to go through these fuses and I will get back to you. All right, so after going through every fuse in here, same thing. I got nothing. So the only fuses I have left that I know of in this vehicle are those maxi fuses, so we're going to try to get them apart. So a little pick, I'm taking off the lids to the maxi fuses. Take my meter. I'm going to put my meter on DC volts. And I'm going to go across the top of the maxi fuse and it goes down to 0. So I'm going to go through these 9. That's 2, 7 more to go. I'm good at math, as long as I can use my fingers and toes. And let's see if any of these maxi fuses have power going through them. All right, I popped the top off of every single maxi fuse. Nothing. No change. So where are we at? Well, I don't want to disconnect the battery, and I'll explain why. So if I disconnect the battery, I could potentially, which I don't want to do, I could potentially reset what's ever hanging up, and I don't want to do that. So we're good here. There's no drawer here, there's no drawer inside. What I can do is, I mean, my alternator doesn't feel warm. The starter I really can't feel, but I can look and see how my power is routed. So I have a positive battery cable, okay, and that positive battery cable has multiple connections on it, and it does go down to the starter, and it does come to this power distribution center here. So I can disconnect the alternator from the battery circuit, take it completely out. I can rule out a short in the alternator causing this draw by doing that. And all I got to do is take the stud off the back of the alternator, pull it off. I could even unplug the alternator connector and see if that changes. How would I know if it changes? Well, I would know because I can disconnect my battery charger, check my battery, and see if I start immediately losing voltage like I was before. If I stop losing that voltage, then I know the alternator is the problem. Is there a better way to see whether you stop losing voltage? Yes. It's putting your meter on an amp scale and putting it in line, in series, I should say, not in line, but in series with your negative terminal. But because these are side post batteries, there's no way I can do it without disconnecting the battery. On a top post, you could sort of shimmy a clamp on the post while the terminal's still connected so that you don't lose battery voltage to the vehicle and start resetting stuff, which we don't want to do. So that's my last resort, is disconnecting the battery. So I want to see if I can take out components without disconnecting the battery, because I don't want whatever it is to reset. The other thing I could look at, which is what most videos will tell you to look at right off the bat, is aftermarket stuff. So I can very easily unplug my module for the automatic start, because it's right there in that little side dash mounted fuse panel. It's 2 plugs that plug into it, and it's completely taken out. So I could disconnect that and then come back to the battery and see what happens, and that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so with my meter on, I don't know if you can see that on the thing with DC volts. Okay, I'm going to check my battery voltage with the charger still connected. Come on, get in there. Okay, now that's a change, because in the beginning of the video I had 12 and change. Now I have 14 and change, and all I did was disconnect that remote start module. So I went from 12 and change to 14 and change. So now when I take this battery charger off and I go from my positive to my negative, I now have 12.52, 12.45, 44. I'm still losing. Still losing. But I definitely got a positive change here. Maybe it'll stabilize. I'm just going to hold it on for a second and see what happens. I'm losing. I don't know why I would be losing unless I got another draw somewhere else, or there is the potential that by unplugging that I activated something in the vehicle. Alright, dropping down to 6, so definitely something going on still, but I definitely we have a difference now just by unplugging that module. So we are quickly running out of light, but I let it sit for about 10 minutes. I'm going to see with the charger off what the battery's doing. And I am at 12:33, 32, 31, 30. It just seems to be dropping too fast for me. 26, 25, 24, 23, 22. I don't know. You know, could the automatic start have been there was definitely something going on with the automatic start, because as soon as we unplugged it, we actually, you know, everything changed. Definitely changed for the better. But it doesn't seem like it's done. But is that normal for the battery voltage to drop? You know, maybe it drops and it stabilizes. I don't know. But let's see if we can get it started now. That the automatic start disconnect. Remember, it did not start. It would just click the starter. It didn't want to crank over. So. Alright, you heard it. So, we potentially fixed a problem, but not the problem. Starter's still clicking, so could we have a bad starter? That's possible. Could the starter be what's taking that juice and drawing it? That's possible also. Huh. I'm thinking now, I think now I'm a little bit more comfortable with disconnecting the battery and seeing if we can isolate our drop using the amp feature of the multimeter. So I'm going to disconnect my ground side. All right, so now my ground side is disconnected, and so I'm going to take my multimeter and I'm going to take my red lead out of here, that's milliamp, and I'm going to go to amp because I want to go to max just to see where I'm at. And now I'm going to go to amps, and I'm on DC amps. Now I'm going to take my clamp here and I'm going to clamp one side to my negative battery terminal and the other side to the battery, and I got two. Oh, it's moving around on me. Let me see here if I can get it in good. 2.080 amp draw on the battery. So although we saw a change when I disconnected the remote start, that wasn't the problem. That might have just been the normal drain from the remote start. The remote start module is going to drain the battery a little bit. 50 milliamp is the golden rule with everything shut down, a 50 milliamp draw, but now I'm at 2 amps almost. It's fluctuating, but I would go 1.9, 2.86, 1.9, 1.8, it's moving around. But I'm going to go 2 amp draw. So I have a 2 amp draw on the battery. That's why the battery's sinking the way it is. So we got to look elsewhere. And I guess that's going to be continued tomorrow.